Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Rational Female coming at you with another fantastic live stream. And today's topic is abortion. So, yeah, this is something which a lot of people like to think about. It's obviously very highly discussed within feminist, anti-feminist, men's rights circles. And I do think that most people assume that if you're against feminism, you're against abortion. But I have met many people who call, well, many is not necessarily many, but I've met people who call themselves anti-feminists or who are against feminism who don't think that abortion should be banned. And I myself hold this view. I don't think abortion should be illegal for very serious reasons. So yeah, I'm gonna bring this to the panel. What's your guys' views on this? Is abortion a women's rights?
Who's going first?
Okay, I can go.
Isn't it? Go ahead, Jana.
I'll go first as another woman. Okay, so I agree with choice. I think what is it? Pro-choice. I am pro-choice personally, but I think when we talk about abortion, this is directly a men's rights issue. First of all, because I think we have to acknowledge that many of the social norms and the norms that we have in society today, and I can see this really well coming from the background that I came from, but we'll get into that later. These norms surround and were created in a time where abortion wasn't a thing. It's not about legal or not, where we didn't have the safe medical care or whatever to have abortion. So abortion would have been illegal. We didn't have abortion. So we created social norms surrounding a time when abortion wasn't a thing. Yes, we now have better technology, doctors, and so on and so on and so on. We have a pill. We have really good possibility to give women this choice, and I think definitely we should give women this choice. But we have to remember that just as women will be freed by giving us such a choice, then we also need to free men from their part of it. So my point is, I would be pro-choice, but I have to say, as if I'm pro-choice or whatever, we have to remember that we can't just change the woman side of it and give women choice without addressing the social rules or laws that were put in place to tie men to the responsibilities that they have as well. So if we're going to give women a choice, then men are probably going to need some sort of opt-out of fatherhood time period or something like that. He's also going to have to say whether he wants to have a child and take care of a child for the next 18 years and not just. Now, I'm not saying it was bad to tie men to children. It absolutely wasn't. And it is not. But it was something that was created in a time when women had no choice. So that needs to be considered. It gets more complicated than that, because then you may end up with children who don't have fathers, which is very complicated. But if we're talking about equality, which I think is quite important, so now I'll give it to somebody else.
Well, I'll piggyback on that. So yeah, okay. It's complicated, isn't it? It's a very complex issue. And abortion is morally problematic, and there's much to look at there. It's complicated, and it's complicated. And it's not simply a woman's issue, because men are involved. And yeah, I facilitate men's personal growth work on weekends called Path to Spirit. We have a process called Life Review, and only a couple of times, but a man will be talking about some woman that he fell in love with when he was young, and she had an abortion. And without realizing, without understanding it himself, he burst into tears, because this woman that he loved formed a child, and he became deeply attached to it, and suddenly it was gone. And he didn't even understand or realize or give himself permission to have an emotional reaction to that, but it was there in his body and would come out in this process. All right, so that's a piece of it. Yeah, what else do I want to say about that? Yeah, my body, my choice. That tends to just dismiss the whole thing. That's it's more complicated than that. Oh my God, there's so much to say about it, really. One thing is, it's very hard to separate fact from fiction out there. It's one of those issues that's such a hot button issue that's so emotional that all the information is partisan. So I don't know what to make of it, but it's claimed that over the last 10, 20 years or something, 50 years, I don't know, that there's been something like 20 million abortions, supposedly. I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, there's no way to know, right? I mean, that's, the assault on truth. Who knows what's true? But it's possible that abortion is a major factor in why birth rates are falling. So I don't know. I mean, I would open things up so that you could examine these things. I would certainly not give men the right to abort a child. I mean, what does that mean? That means what? Policemen coming to a woman's door and dragging her to the hospital in handcuffs and tying her down and forcing her. That's insane. That's out of the question. So I think the sexes have to be a little generous with each other to allow that there are differences and not require this unisex equality, because we're not a unisex species. I think it should be acknowledged, however, that this is a female-only option that men do not have. And just acknowledge it. Just let it be entered into the equation, so we can understand these things in a more balanced way. And then there's the issue of like a married man and his wife chooses to abort the child. And the last time I looked into it, in the United States, only one state, I believe it was Vermont, required a wife to inform her husband in advance of her that she was going to do this. And ironically, if a man went to get a vasectomy in this country, you'd almost certainly find that the doctor won't do it without written permission from his wife.
There's a Rick and Morty episode about that, actually. Yeah, no, it's very serious. And I think both you and Jana bring up a very important point about we never really think of abortion from what the man has to go through, because I know in my personal life as well, there have been men who they were with someone and the woman aborted the child and the man was very upset. So we don't think about that. But I personally think that abortion, because women are the ones who bear children, from a purely practical perspective, the woman should have the final say, because she is the one who has to give birth. And the reason I say that is because giving birth and choosing to give birth is very, very serious. And there are some women for whom the desire to have children isn't there. And there might be very, very serious reasons why. And one reason, which I brought up before we started the stream, was that women who have had a lot of children, say if they've had 4 children, they might not want to have another child, and they might become pregnant entirely by accident. So that's very serious. And then there's also the case of a woman who maybe is very poor or disabled or has very serious mental illness. I also wanted to mention one thing. I was trying to find resources, but I can't. I've got so much stuff on my laptop. But I'm pretty sure abortion did exist in ancient times. I think they did
in a crude form, but yeah.
Yeah, abortion is not a modern invention. It's just that abortion now is much safer because we have modern medicine. And for those who don't know, abortion was legalized in the UK in 1967. In America, it was 1973. Birth control was invented by men, Gregory Goodwin Pincus, Frank B. Colton, and Carl Djerassi. He invented the first birth control pill. So it was all men who invented this stuff. And I think that, this is an example of men creating something to help make women's lives easier. But yeah, no, abortion, saying whether or not abortion is a women's issue, I would say personally, I think it is more of a women's issue, but we should be considerate towards the man's say. Well,
okay, so I'm the only person here that identifies as a men's rights activist out and out, I think. So I'll tell you my take on it. I am overall very much pro-choice. I do think abortion should be legal for multiple reasons. There's the moral argument. There's the argument that unwanted pregnancies are not good for society. There's the argument that if abortion is illegal, women will try and get back alley abortions, which is very dangerous. I am recognizing the fact that, it is a very morally gray area. I mean, it's not some happy, cheerful thing, but I do support women's rights to choose an abortion. I think Ron DeSantis, who is a lying, cowardly sack governor of Florida, had a pretty decent proposal for a 15-week abortion law. That's in line with Western Europe. That's in line with Spain. That's in line with Portugal. I can maybe be talked into 18 weeks. The reason why I call him a cowardly weasel is because he then reneged at the very last minute and passed a 6-week abortion law. And 6 weeks, a lot of women might not even know they're pregnant, until the first, 4, 5, 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But I would like to see, the men's rights movement doesn't really ever take positions on things that are not directly related to men's rights. I would like to see a more unified statement in support of abortion rights. As far as financial abortions go, I kind of depart from a lot of MRAs here. It's not that if a woman lies to a man about being on birth control and then gets pregnant, is it fair for the man? No, it's not, but there's a child to consider. So child support, while is an extremely flawed system and desperately needs reform, it is extremely unfairly applied. For the sake of the child, I do think if you're a father of a child, you now have a responsibility. I mean, it's not for the mother's sake; it's for the child's sake. So it's a very complicated issue. It's a very big issue. That's why I strongly support access to contraception and good sex education. So yeah, overall, I am pro-choice, but I definitely recognize it's a very gray area.
Yes,
Yeah,
I should state quickly before I go on. I'm not here as a representative of NCFM, even though I'm vice president of NCFM. I'm not here as a representative of NCFM. I'm not speaking NCFM position. NCFM officially has no position on abortion because, just as Blueorange said, it's not strictly a men's issue, and we have our hands full dealing with men's issues without sticking our neck out about abortion. So I'm here just as myself, Tim Goldich, and
I want to add. You might notice where I am. I'm out walking around at my local gym, and I'm wearing this shirt, as I was saying in the lobby before. What if people overhear me? Good. I hope they do. Let's start a conversation. Let's be visible. Let's make our voices actually known in public. So many spaces of these conversations. And not you, all you people here are very great, you're very active, but so many people just end up talking to themselves or talking in circles. I want to have these conversations out in public. I want to be seen. I want to be overheard. I want to be interrupted. Hey, what is that? What are you guys talking about? Let's really open things up. Let's really be heard. So that's kind of why I'm walking around the gym wearing this crazy shirt. And yeah.
Well, I would like to say quickly, the UK, the abortion is 24 weeks. And also because we don't have, and this is something I think we need to touch on as well, the UK doesn't have a massive religious body in government. Like, it's very, very secular compared to, say, the US, from what I understand. And both the Conservative and Labour governments, all the main political governments, would not dare ban abortion because the UK is not really governed by religion. And I think as well that a lot of people who say abortion should be illegal are usually religious, and they usually commit it from a religious side. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let me chime in on that. So I think a really important point to make here is that feminism always wants to frame everything in terms of men of the power, women of the victim, man bad, the overempowered oppressor, woman good, the innocent victim, and is very much wants to drive a wedge between men and women. Well, I propose that this abortion issue is not an issue of men's interests versus women's interests at all. That it is, in fact, a conflict between gender political liberals of both sexes versus gender political conservatives of both sexes. It's a really important point to make. It's not something that it's framed as the patriarchy is imposing this on women, but conservative women are every bit as much a force of influence in dampening down abortion as are conservative men. So it's really more of an issue between conservatives and liberals of both sexes. And another point I'd like to make is that, in my judgment, it's fundamentally unresolvable. Okay, so it's really, in my judgment, it all comes down to a potential human. That this zygote is, in my judgment, it's not a human. It is the little salamander it appears to be. However, it is a potential human. And I don't think there's any way to come to some logical, resolute position on what that means. What is a potential human? We're never going to agree on that. So I don't think abortion is something that can be resolved. I don't think you can find some logical way to say, to make a decision around it. In my judgment, the only thing that comes close to a solution regarding this issue is a compromise that both sides of the aisle will be unhappy with, but that both sides can live with.
Because as Laurie points out, though, the religious side will never compromise. And that's why religion makes it so complicated, because there's simply, I mean, certainly in very fundamentalist Christianity and Islam, there's no compromise. Because to them, they believe in hell, they believe it's murder, they believe in whatever their religious take is. So there is no space for compromising with this issue. More than probably any other issue I can think of, this is the last issue that they would compromise on. And in America,
from their position, abortion is murder. Okay?
Right.
Nowhere to go with that. No room. No place to negotiate. Nothing. But on the other hand, we've got my body, my choice, and that's almost as dogmatic. Not quite, but it's pretty close.
Quite.
I would even say the conservatives are more right with no abortion at all than my body, my choice. Because, okay, for me, I'm pro-choice, as I said, and that's probably boils down to I have 3 kids. If I got pregnant today, I would be having an abortion. I would need a safe environment to have an abortion. I don't want any more children. Yet I'm still fertile. Okay, so, but what I want to say is that this discussion, how I always look at these things, is that it boils down to equality. This is all just a negotiation about what is equal, what is an equal thing. And to me, I've met a lot of conservative people, women, because I've interviewed many women for Women Against Feminism. There are lots of conservative women who say no abortion. And to me, what they're saying is that they don't agree with abortion, but remember, this is within the framework of conservatism, which to them, this is actually very fair setup. No abortion for women, men are tied to the care of children. And to me, and they're right, this is fair. The truth is that all of these negotiations about equality and whatever, we're just looking at how much work there is to ensure the survival of children and our society, and how that work is shared. And one way to do that is through marriage, and the man has to help the woman. And it just is equal parenting. Men are equally as responsible as women. And I think what the abortion thing puts into place, and it's not just abortion, it's contraception, abortion, all the way up to adoption. I spoke to someone who I made a really nice video on this, and they were talking about it. They said, look at the choices that women have. Women have contraceptive choices before she ever gets pregnant. Not that men don't have any, but we have more contraceptive choices than men do. Then if contraception fails, then we have the choice to abort in many places throughout the world. So, as you said, abortion has been something that is, there since a long while. Now it's more accessible than it was before. But the point is, we have in first world countries, I don't know exactly about America, but in many places, women have this choice to abort. Then, if abortion fails, she doesn't abort, and she ends up carrying the child through pregnancy and birth. She then has the choice to not name a father and give up that child for adoption. Sorry. Yeah. She has the chance to give away the child for adoption. So all along the line, women have so much choice regarding whether or not she really, really wants to take care of this child. If we are going to enter, and this entire discussion, like I said, it's about equality. Therefore, men need more choices as well. They are going to need more choices somewhere along the line. And if that has to come through financial, it cannot come, as you said, through forcing a woman to abort. No one would ever agree that a man should have the right to say, woman, you must abort. That would be a terrible thing. It's her body. Yeah. Yes. Okay. But then he can have the right to opt out of fatherhood, to say, I didn't agree with this. And to be honest, that is what marriage was before we had the technology of being able to say, you are the father, you are the point of marriage was to say, this is the individual who will be the father of every child that comes out of that womb. And this was the agreement. Had she gotten pregnant without marriage, then there's no obligation on the part of the man. So yeah, it comes down to a fight between, well, not a fight, but it's between man and woman. How do we equally share this burden of having children? And abortion, contraception, they put new inputs into this equation, and society has to react to those inputs on the male side by evaluating, is this still a fair setup? And in most cases, I think the answer is no. And I'm not saying the answer is going to be a clear cut and dry, he gets this, he gets finance. But we need to answer, what would a new setup look like that would be actually fair to both men and women? Because
the old system, as fair as can be,
yeah. The old
if a country was rich enough to fully support a single mother in terms of benefits, then I might be okay with the concept of a financial abortion. But I can't think of any country where economically that would make sense.
And it makes it unfair.
Unless it was extremely socialist, like you're talking about, like wheat or something.
But would you agree that it makes setup unfair?
But you're right, Thomas. I mean, that's, again, it's the complications go on and on. So yeah, okay, great. So a father signs some financial abortion, and then he's gone, and he has no financial responsibility, and that's fine for him. But what about the children? What about?
Okay, but is it fair? I mean, now I will agree that women had an unfair setup to start with, and we dealt with that evolutionarily and But I think so. This is why women were the ones who then had, I think it may end then in men being the one who have the sexual control or whatever, because men are not going to want to sleep with women in this condition, under these circumstances. I mean,
well, there's already that is going on.
But I will say though, and I think this is a very important point which Jana mentioned, contraception is something I personally feel very strongly about. And I know there are a lot of women out there who don't use any contraception. And in the UK, so I'm from the UK, and you know, in the UK we have the NHS, so abortion and contraception is all free because it's all on it's free, it's funded by taxpayers, but it's all available on the NHS. We have a very good benefit system. So the UK is a very good country in many ways, in that sense of like social health and social care, and very social democratic. So I think that contraception, personally, I really do feel strongly about this. If a woman is sexually active, there is no excuse. She should be at the very least using protection and I understand a lot of women don't want to go on hormonal birth control. I myself, I use birth control. I've used the pill and I've used the coil now for several years. It's very, very good for me. It helps me with many things as well. So, yeah, I think that it's very good to use birth control, but also there's the diaphragm, and there's ways around this. I think you choose not to use any contraception and being very reckless.
Yeah, IUD. Yeah. So, right. I just want to say in the United States, I don't know how it is elsewhere, but there's even more options for women. They can drop the child off at a drop-off center.
Oh, really?
Yes. There are no questions asked. Just hand it off. There are places officially that will take newborn children and ask no questions. And also, the male is vulnerable in the United States. He can be hit up for child payments retroactively. She could raise the child for 10 years, a child that he doesn't even know he has, and then all of a sudden go to court and decide, now I want my child payments. Now
and in states, paternity tests are illegal. So if a woman claims that the man is the father, he's not allowed to request a DNA test.
That's very bad. That's very bad.
Yeah. So at the very least, at the very bottom of what's required, society needs to understand these things. You know, we must, as always, overcome this feminist ideological dictatorship that says men have the power, women are the victims. We need to challenge that. We need to at least understand that men have these issues, that men are in many ways powerless, and that women have the power in many situations, and do so in deeply fundamental ways around what's more fundamental than parenting and parenting rights, right?
And let me point out how the 4 people here were all either anti-feminist and or men's rights activists, and all 4 of us support abortion rights.
I think that's very interesting. Yeah, I actually think that's very good because you know, as Tim mentioned, there are a lot of conservative anti-feminist women who are very, and actually I read somewhere that women specifically are more anti-abortion than men. I've told feminists that actually, they usually are like, oh really? Because I think a lot of women, a lot of like these conservative women, especially I would say more so in America, are very religious.
That's what it is.
Yeah, and I think because of the religion, and they tend to take it very seriously, you know. So the way I see it, I actually think that
abortion,
personally, I think a lot of it has to do with religion, because I think religion.
Well, just consider how the religious
and it's not
how the religious look at it. What do the religious say? So the religious say that at the moment of conception, it's a human life.
I mean, not to be crude, but does that mean every time a guy jerks off, he's killing a kid?
Well, you know, every sperm is sacred. If a sperm is wasted, God gets quite irate.
Yeah.
My point is just that
if you know the song I'm talking about, the Monty Python bit.
Isn't that very fair though, to say women are locked into having this child, but men are also locked? At least they're saying something equal. Both men and women are locked.
Right.
So they're saying from the time you have sex, you're locked into this. And you as well, man, from the time you get married or have sex, well, I guess get married, you're locked into this. And
at least it's consistent.
Yeah,
it is consistent. But I think that these religions, because they use this fear of God, and I won't talk too much about religion here, but the whole fear thing is like it forces people to be very afraid because they think something in the sky is like watching them do their business, which is like, it's very, very, I can't get my head around that at all. But the thing is that I think that if we look at it, because it's very true that yes, abortion can't be looked at from a purely logical standpoint, because it is something that can become a person, and it's very, very hard to be objective about that. But I think that actually, if we try and look at other arguments, like for example, what kind of costs are we going to have to society if we just force children to be born to parents who are either reckless or unstable or unmarried or, you know, don't have money? You know, if people are forced, sorry, Jana, you talking? If you muted.
I'm saying I don't think it would be so bad. I don't think it would be terrible if people,
because I think if we force children to be born to people who can't look after them,
you think you can't take care of a child, but if you had a child, I'm sure you would be a wonderful parent and do everything.
Okay, you don't know me that well, so I think that's very presumptuous.
all right. But many people who think they can't have children, I think they would be fine. So I'm not worried.
I actually wouldn't be fine because I don't have a partner and I have very serious mental health problems. So I find that very presumptuous. I don't think I'm in a position at the moment to have a child. I live alone. I don't even I live in supported accommodation. But no, I really disagree with that. I think people who are very serious, like for example, if you have a very good job and if you don't have mental health problems or you're not disabled, and also there's the thing as well, I think children should be born to 2 parents. I was raised by 2 parents. I think kids need a mother and a father. And I think it's very sad, like, if kids are born to single parents, you know, like kids typically, I read in Sex Matters by Maria Sharon, kids do much better in, single parent homes are the largest indicator of a kid being involved in delinquent behavior, basically.
It's not that there's no truth to what you're saying. That there is a lot of truth to it, but there's also something like people rise to the occasion. You may think that you would do poorly in parenting, but when you have a child, you may change and become better and thing. And I just think in general, there's no way to really say that. I think it's okay if people who don't have a perfect life. I didn't have a perfect life when I got pregnant the first time.
I know, but you have a stable marriage, and that does help. And I don't know. I don't think we should encourage or support single parent families, because kids
But
from
that's
single
not,
families
it's
are
not,
Yeah.
it's not to attack single parents. It's not to say that a single mother can't do a wonderful job. Of course she
No.
can. It's not saying that a single parent can, but it's just better to have both. And I do think that there's something about having a mother and a father. That's not
Sure.
to attack a gay couple. A gay couple can absolutely raise children very
Right.
successfully. But the easiest and most ideal is a mother and a father in a stable marriage.
And that
And I
shows
don't
up in
think-
the bell curves. That shows up statistically.
And that's not to say, again, it's not to put a single mother down, but isn't it easier with 4 hands rather than 2? 2 brains.
But would
rather
it
than one.
really be so bad if, because this whole thing started with there are many people who can't have children because they're not like good enough or something. But is that, I don't know if I agree with that. I think if someone
No,
has
I
a
don't
child,
know.
they'll just do a good job. I
No,
think people
there
lie.
are some terrible parents out there. I think that's no offense, but I think that's a bit of a naive thing to say. There are a lot of kids who are born to parents who are quite dysfunctional, very unfit.
But in the past, most people had kids, and
because most people for a long time are married, as we said, especially if we look at the last 2,000 years of Christianity in the West. They had religion, they were kind of, that's
right.
the way.
So maybe people will get married if that were the case. I just feel like people will adapt, and I think they will raise children. Okay, I am not afraid I don't think we have a bunch of degenerates who can't have kids, I wouldn't be afraid for society if people had kids.
Yeah, that's another immensely complicated rabbit hole to look into. But something that occurs to me is this brings up another point about men walking away. So doesn't the child have some kind of a right to both parents? And also, mothers and fathers are not just 2 parents. There are 2 different kinds of parents.
Yes.
And the father contributes something very important. And bluntly, it's really single mothers that are having the poorest result rate. Single fathers, for a number of reasons, and again, it's another complicated rabbit hole to go down, but statistically, single fathers do better than single mothers in terms of raising children.
Well, because a single father has to have so much more resources to have custody in the first place. For a man to win sole custody, he really has to have his life together. And the factors around
certainly that's one of the mitigating factors, without a doubt. Most men lose in the court system if they try and. The last I knew, 85% of contested cases of parenting, 85% went to the mother. So yeah, a father really has to kind of excel if he's going to end up with full custody.
And without question, a single father is missing out on having a mother to help him. And that feminine perspective, a single father is just as disadvantaged. So, and that's not, again, not to shame the single mother, not to shame the single father, but I do think having 2 parents and a male-female perspective is simply the most optimal. Not to shame anyone else, but it's the most optimal.
No,
I agree. And we also need wider family as well. I think also grandparents and all of this add to it.
Yeah, that would be great. Of course, historically, children were raised by extended society, aunts, uncles, grandparents, friends of the family.
Of a community. I agree. We need this community to raise children. And right now, we live in like an increasingly individualistic society where like the grandparents, the community is not there. They're not connected. They don't think it's their responsibility and so on. I don't know if everyone experiences that, but I think more and more people experience that as people travel for work, as people, I don't know, it just gets like that. I think.
No, I agree. I was actually reading yesterday about extended family versus nuclear family, and the idea of the nuclear family became very popular in the kind of 20th century, from what I know anyway. And before that, it was very much, yes, extended families, and there was such a big, people, like they say, it takes a village to raise a child. So I don't think that single parent families are a good model to raise children. Again, I do agree, not saying that single parents are all terrible. Of course, there are good people.
No, but it's hard.
And
incredibly hard. Incredibly hard.
it's
for
hard
anyone
for
who has a
people
full-time job.
who don't even have extended family. I was raised within a communal setting. I was raised around aunts and uncle and grandparents who lived in the same exact house and stuff. And I can say, and therefore I had younger cousins and stuff like that who I would have helped raise and so on. And this is a much easier way to raise children, in my opinion. And also it's, I mean, of course there are downsides, because I guess because people are so close, it increases the chances of abuse and all kind of weird stuff that wouldn't happen when you're alone. But on the flip side, I don't know, it's just it's also extremely stressful, I think, when you put everything on one person or on two people. Yeah,
that's right. Even two people, yeah, but one person, oh my God. I mean, I've known single mothers that just are driven insane.
Yeah, which is exactly why abortion actually needs to be kept legal, because there are cases where I don't think we should force someone to have a child, because, you know, I think prevention is better. So I think, you know, contraception, and also I think it should be state funded. I do support state funded contraception because we have that in the UK with the NHS. But no, I really don't believe in like forcing, because, you know, there are people who they'll say, I was raised by a single parent and my parent was abusive, or they were neglectful, or they did a great job, but they were never around because they were, you know, it's hard. It's not a good upbringing. And I want to say something highly controversial. I don't believe in this whole idea of like life being inherently sacred. I think life is like very difficult and challenging. I think, you know, life is generally full of suffering and pain. So I don't think that like, I don't really view it like this idea that, you know, being alive and living is some wonderful thing. It's just, you know, we live because we were born. So I don't view like terminating a life in a way that like yes, I understand that there's something about it which is uncomfortable, but I think more from the perspective of the mother, in the sense that, you know, she might have mental health issues or she might feel very sad about it, but also like I don't see it as like a terrible tragedy. But that's my kind of
For me, it's about brain activity. Somewhere between 15 to 24 weeks is when a fetus starts having a certain quantifiable measure of brain activity. And while it is somewhat arbitrary, and it's very difficult to say this is the exact line where it becomes morally uncomfortable for me, it's somewhere in the 15 to 24 week range, and it's based on your neurological activity and brain waves. And I know that that's a little bit what I said, a little bit woo, a little bit wishy-washy, and it is very gray. It is very difficult. But there does reach a point where a fetus's brain activity would make it morally uncomfortable for me to support abortion past a certain point. But in general, I do agree that for the sake of the mother, it's a right that's important to be upheld.
Yeah, so I'll piggyback on that. Yeah, I agree. So abortion is morally problematic. I think we just have to look at it and deal with it. You know, that doesn't mean we have to run screaming from the room about it, but I think that abortion needs to exist. It needs to be available. It needs to be safe. It needs to be legal. And also we need to, you know, look at the moral issues of it, and you know, where's our cutoff point with abortion, and maybe, you know, there's mandatory counseling before a woman has an abortion. You know, there's all this kind of talk too. I mean, there's all this stuff around a woman's responsibility to this unborn child, and you know, so there's lots to look at. So again, I'll just say that I think abortion is morally problematic. I think it is unresolvable. As Blueorange says, there is a kind of a vaguely a point where the brain kind of switches on, and maybe that provides something of a objective point. I don't know, but these things have to be taken seriously. You know, both sides turn it into a circus.
Yes.
You know, when they say abortion is murder, well, where do you go from there? What do you do with that? My body, my choice. Now what? You got nowhere to go. It turns the whole thing to this circus. If you're going to take it seriously, you have to open up and be willing to look at these things, all the myriad facets of it.
I don't object to my body, my choice as much as you do. What's your issue with it?
Well, for one thing, the fetus is a genetically unique individual. It's not actually a part of the woman's body. It's a separate, growing, living thing.
I really don't like my body, my choice at all, because it's kind of just trying to say it's our business and not yours. But men are totally affected by this. That it's not that men are not like a little bit of, they are affected. They have to pay child support. We live in a time where most societies place the burden of parenthood on both men and women. The burden of and there have been times and places and cultures where it was not placed on men. It's not like we couldn't do that, but we as a society, generally speaking, place the burden of parenthood on both men and women. So this is not a choice that affects no one besides you. It affects your body, but it affects his too. It affects him for the next 18 years.
And emotion affects him emotionally also. Men act like they're invulnerable, but this is just an act. Men are vulnerable. They do have emotional stakes. The man could be out there buying a baseball bat and catcher's mitt for this kid he thinks is on the way, and suddenly it's gone.
Yeah, that's very sad.
And to go back to something that you said, the rational female, when you were talking about like philosophically, you don't view life as this thing. I wonder sometimes if that is a difference between conservatism and liberalism. Now, I agree with you that life is not so important in my view as well to pursue life. Life is not this thing that we must have. It's okay if life doesn't continue, right? Or you know what I mean? So because like you said, there's suffering and all of that, and I just wonder, is this like a sort of more liberal view, whereas the conservatives view life as something that you have to have? Because it comes back to like other themes that I see in conservatism, like when we talk about racism or like what is it, like they say like things like great replacement or whatever. It's like they must continue the race, they must continue, and I find that I can't relate, because it's like, why is life so important? Is it that conservatives see it?
Yeah, I don't think that's conservative versus liberal. I think that's more like, are you depressed versus are you not depressed?
Yeah, probably. So I agree. It's linked to depression. But to me, I more see it like life is just not that important. I'm not like, I think it would be okay if people don't exist. I mean, like when you talk about, let's say, racism or great racism, for me, in terms of race, it'd be like, if people say, oh, the black race wouldn't exist, I'd be like, I think that's okay. I don't feel like...
Jana, others would call that nihilism.
Right, no, it's nihilism. It's nihilism. Absolutely, it's very nihilistic. Well, I was making a nihilistic argument about like life not being sacred, because nihilism is something I find very interesting. I wouldn't call myself a nihilist per se, but I do find nihilism fascinating and existential philosophy in general.
But is this a fundamental liberal view? Is this?
No, it's not conservative or liberal. I don't think people in general should think like me on that sense. I think that's very much
So there are nihilist conservatives. You would say there are nihilist conservatives. Do you think there are nihilist?
I don't think you have to. I don't think being nihilist is whether you're conservative or liberal. I mean,
I think it's slightly more liberal. I think it's slightly more liberal.
I think it is somewhat more liberal.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it could be anybody with a dark, depressing attitude could be nihilistic. But yeah, I think it's liberals that are saying things like humans are a blight on the earth. That humans,
I mean, America's different from the UK. I don't really think. I'm sure there are right-wing people here who have depression. I don't. Really
because to me, when I hear a lot of right-wing arguments, it boils down to something like, we want to survive. Everybody, we must survive. Again, it's like this survival thing. And it's like, why do we need to survive? What is so important about us being here on Earth? It's hard to...
Well, yeah, but you see, you're divorced from the sacred aspect. From a religious point of view, there's sacredness to consider.
Isn't the point of life to live? I mean, when Keith Richards was asked, what's the most important thing in your life? He said, living. I mean, living is the point.
Yeah, but for me, I'm okay. I think it's beautiful, this idea that we leave. I don't want to be here. Yeah, I guess it's depression, but I don't want to be here.
Anyway, let's not talk about this too much. Anyway, just sorry, a bit too weird. Anyway, so to bring it back on topic before we finish, is abortion actually? I think we've covered a lot of topic today, and I'm not sure if abortion is a women's right per se, but it definitely seems like women should have the final say. However, men should also have a right to decide, especially if there's a premise of like, their partner just terminating the kid they think is going to be born and then crying, or, then potentially having to pay child support and paternity fraud as well. So there are all these things to consider. So yes, it sounds like we should try and think of abortion as less of a women's right, and I think more of a humanitarian issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's very complicated. It's it's an ugly thing. I mean, it's not in the sense that you should be shamed for it, but it's it's a dark time in a person's life, but it's something that should be legal. It's something that should be safely accessible. It's something that should be very private. But overall, my answer is yes, abortion is a woman's right, with a lot of understanding that there are complications for the man too. There's maternity fraud, as you mentioned. So that's kind of it's a very, very gray area, very difficult.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anyone got any final thoughts?
Just to echo what Blueorange says there. Yeah, it's complicated. I'll reiterate. I think it's just very important that this be taken out of the feminist ideological dictatorship and brought to the light, so that we can look at it in a multifaceted way. That it's not just a male versus female thing. That it's really more of a liberal versus conservative thing, and to at least understand all these issues and how they affect men, how the emotional and financial and legal impact on men.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, my final thoughts. This is an equality argument. I'm totally okay with giving women the right to have abortion and pro-choice. Just we need to at the same time look at what men have as rights and if it is equal or balanced, or if men need rights to, when we get these rights, are there rights that men also need to bring us back to a place of equality? Because at the end of the day, when men and women, when there are inequalities in terms of men and women and what choices women have versus what choices men have, when we don't have a sense that we're equal, and we don't have to have the exact same choices, but we still need to have a feeling that everything is equal, that creates imbalances, and those imbalances affect other parts of our lives and so on. So I think to have everything good and people feel fairly treated, some kind of equality needs to exist there. Give women the right to abort, but at the same time look into what rights men have and what freedoms they have with respect to control over whether or not they have a child or have to take care of a child.
Okay.
Perfectly said. Perfectly said. Wow. Very well said.
Right. So thank you for people for tuning in. Check out all the links in the description box. I've got their stuff linked as well, and hopefully see you for the next stream. Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye.